And that's when Israel was attacked by every side. So here you have Israel. This is the nation of Israel. I ought to write that up there. So this is, it's really not the best of drawings, but you get the idea. So here's the nation of Israel. And Jerusalem is over here in somewhere in this area. And they have the West Bank on this side. You'll hear a lot about the West Bank. So let me put this in here, the West Bank, and then Jerusalem is about here. And the Muslims, of course, control Egypt here. And they control Jordan here. And they control Syria here, which Syria's a lot of chaos. And this is a lot of chaos up here. So in the 1967, this is Saudi Arabia down here. And that just gives you an idea. There's actually a border here. So this is Jordan and Egypt and Saudi Arabia. You can look up on a map and get a better idea of it, but that gives you a basic idea geographically what's going on. And Gaza is this little strip of land. It's only 25 miles long, this direction. So from here to here is 25 miles, and this isn't to scale. And this up here is 6 miles at its length. And then they've got the Mediterranean Sea out here. It borders the Mediterranean Sea. So the border that they have with Egypt is closed. So no one from Gaza can go to Egypt. And then in Gaza, there are these certain crossing areas in which Israel has that they control with great care. There's this, to draw it in here, there's this area all the way along, which is a no-enter zone. No one from Gaza can enter that zone. It's a no-pass, no one there except the soldiers, because what was happening in Gaza for years is they have been terrorizing Israel by coming over and blowing themselves up or terrorizing the folks. Now, yesterday was a different event from anything that's ever happened. Tens of thousands of rockets have been shot from Gaza into, and then they cut the fence and they go in, and they're going into cities like Ashkelon, and they are kidnapping people out of their homes. And when you see the people are kidnapped, they had one picture up last night of an older lady. She was obviously a nursing home kind of person. Get that in your mind. She's in a wheelchair, likely suffering from dementia, and they had her with a AK-47 holding up a peace sign as propaganda. One young lady named Noah, N-O-E, who I was burdened for, she was captured and put on a motorcycle, separated from her boyfriend, and she's screaming, "Don't kill me, don't kill me, don't kill me." And they figure that she's one of the ones that is kidnapped, but they also took a 20-year-old German lady, and she may, if you saw any videos, she's the one that was in the back of the Jeep, and they took her out and threw her in the back of the Jeep, and then later her body's found on the street. A lot of the videos you can't see. I mean, if you dig for them on Twitter, you can probably find, I didn't want to not be able to sleep. They say a lot of the things that you see are just a massacre of what the terrorists have done to the Israelis. So Israel has decided that they're going to go in and level Gaza. And we'll see what happens. Let's talk about Gaza for a minute. As I said, it's a very small area, and there's 2.2 million people there. So imagine 2.2 million people in this small strip of land. A lot of them are refugees from other areas, but they're under the control of Hamas. Hamas is the political leaders. You'll hear a lot about Hamas in the news, and you probably already have. Who is Hamas? It's the Islamic Resistance Movement. It was started in 1987, and it replaced the PLO. Do you all remember the PLO? Palestinian Liberation Organization. They were the ones who took Patty Hearst, captive back in the day. I mean, some of you probably don't remember that. I'm an old timer. But they replaced the PLO. We thought the PLO was bad. But the PLO eventually, Yasser Arafat, came to the table and made some deal with Menachem Begin. And that was back in the days of Jimmy Carter. And they had a peace agreement. And then Clinton had another peace agreement. And then Trump had another peace agreement. But this group, Hamas, has never wanted peace and had resisted Israel. And their whole purpose, all of them, is to overthrow Israel. Now, the thing that might surprise you is this isn't new. In fact, it's all through the Bible. The fight going on between this little strip of land and this strip of land has been going on. If I were to lay this out as a possession, this would be Judah's property. The 12 tribes. Judah is down here in the south. And so that's important in what I'm going to show you. So let's begin in Genesis chapter 10, verse 15 to 19. I have a lot of verses up here, and you may just have to jot them down and take them home and look at them. But here's where it first shows up in the Bible. And Canaan begat Sidon and his firstborn Heth. And there's the Jebusite, see that? The Amorite, the Girgasite, the Hivite, the Archite, the Sinite. Who are these people? Well, they are the sons of Ham, verse 6. So all these people come from Ham. And then if you look over at verse 19, and the border of the Canaanites was from Sidon as thou goest to Gerar unto Gaza, as thou goest unto Sodom and Gomorrah, and Adonai and Zebo. So there is Gaza mentioned first time in verse 19 of Genesis chapter 10, and it's connected with the land of Ham. Now let's go over to what begins to take place. Let's go to Numbers chapter 33. And there's other references in Deuteronomy, but I'm just going to hit some highlights here for you. I think when we finish this, at least I hope, it gives you some idea that what's taking place is nothing new. It's been going on for generations, really since God divided the nations. And then when the children of Israel are to go into this land. Now, this is the river. This is the river Jordan, right down through here. The river Jordan. Down here is the Dead Sea. And so the children of Israel, when they leave Egypt, they cross the Red Sea and they come all the way up through here, and they cross the river Jordan somewhere up here. And when they go through this area, this at the time was known as Moab. And remember, there's two tribes of Israel that end up on this side of Jordan. 2.5 tribes. Manasseh, Gad, and Reuben end up on this side of Jordan. So when they come up through here, they are battling their way through. And when they come into this area, all of this area, the promised land, is inhabited by the Canaanites. And so the whole book of Joshua is about driving out these people, driving them out. Now you come to Numbers chapter 33, verse 50, and the Lord spake unto Moses in the plains of Moab by Jordan, near Jericho, saying, speaking to the children of Israel, and say to them, when ye have passed over Jordan unto the land of Canaan, then ye shall drive out all the inhabitants of the land from before you, destroy all their pictures, destroy all their molten images, and quite pluck them down all their high places. And ye shall dispose the inhabitants of the land, and dwell therein, for I have given you the land to possess it. And ye shall divide the land by lot, an inheritance among your families. And to the more ye shall give the more inheritance, and to the few ye shall give the less inheritance. Every man's inheritance shall be in the place where his lot fallen, the place which his lot is fallen, according to the tribes of your fathers, ye shall inherit it. But if ye will not, watch this, if ye will not drive out the inhabitants of the land from before you, then it shall come to pass that those which ye let remain, them shall be pricks in your eyes, and thorns in your sides, and shall vex you in the land wherein ye dwell. Moreover, it shall come to pass that I shall do unto you as I thought to do unto them. So when God comes in and says, take this land, he said, take it all and kill them all. And if you don't kill them all, what's going to happen? Well, in 2023, they're going to be launching rockets at you and kidnapping your people and going in and getting your grandmas and taking off your little girls and your little boys and taking them captivity. Now, that we saw that happen just yesterday. Now, you're going to hear a lot in some areas of the media, and, I can't say I'm not compassionate upon these people. 2.2 million people. This is a terrorist group, Hamas. But there's ordinary people that live there that are just like you and me. 25% of the population, think about this, 25% of the population is 25 years and younger. And on average, the women are not allowed to work, so they just stay home. The men go out, and the more babies they have, the way the government's set up, the more babies they have, the more money they make. Does that sound familiar? So the more babies you have, the more money you make. And so on average, they have, one family on average has 4.4 children. Now I remember one episode of Andy Griffith, little Opie's being explained to that about 1.5 children, and he's shaking his head. And Andy asked him what's wrong. He said, man, I feel sorry for that half a boy. But you understand the statistics. It's not 4 and then 1/4 of a kid. It's just the statistics. Some have 5 and some have 3, but on average, they have about 4 kids, 4.5 kids per family. So some will have 8 and some will have 2, the way the statistics work out. But these people are under duress, and they're going to be victims of Hamas's attack upon Israel, no doubt about it. And there's going to be innocent lives lost in Gaza, no doubt. Now, what the United States has always done since the beginning of Israel in May of 1948 has been taking the side of Israel, always. No exceptions. And the president yesterday came out with a strong statement in favor of Israel, which I applaud and am thankful for. But the thing that's going to happen is this country, because of our history, and I'm talking about our recent history, starting with Vietnam and Afghanistan and Iraq, we got no stomach for war anymore. So if Israel begins to go in there and kill these people in Gaza, and then you get the count going up, there's 2.2 million there. And what happens when, let's say 200,000 are killed? Or 500,000 are killed? I don't know if that's going to happen. But they say they're going to root out Hamas, and that means they're going to have to go street to street, street to street, blow up buildings. What happens? Do you lose your stomach, America, if that begins to happen? Now, here's what the Bible says, and you've got to keep in mind, and I'm not saying everything Israel ever does is right, because they're lost. They're still God's people. But they believe in the God of Israel, but they don't believe in Jesus Christ. So I'm not going to say everything Israel does is right. But I will tell you this. I will bless them that bless thee, and I will curse him that curseth thee. And we better be on the right side of this, because in the end, this is the right side. In the end, that's the right side. And that's the apple of God's eye. So Gaza comes along, and it tells us in Joshua chapter 10, if you just flip over there a bit, it tells us in Joshua chapter 10 that it's Judah that inherited this land. Now, Judah may not have appreciated that very much, because it's a wild people. But in Joshua chapter 10, verse 41, and Joshua smote them from Kadesh Barnea even unto Gaza, and all the country of Goshen, even to Gibeah. And all these kings and their land did Joshua take at one time, because the Lord God of Israel fought for Israel, and Joshua returned and all Israel with him unto the camp of Gilgal. So that sounds great. Man, give him a check mark. He drove out the inhabitants. But then we read in Judges chapter 1 something else. Judges chapter 1 gives us some more detail. Judges 1, verse 17. And Judah went with Simeon his brother, and they slew the Canaanites, inhabited Zapheth, and utterly destroyed it. And the name of the city was Hormah. And Judah took Gaza with the coast thereof, and Ashkelon, and the coast thereof, and Ekron, and the coast thereof. And the Lord was with Judah, and he drave out the inhabitants of the mountain. But he could not drive out the inhabitants of the valley, because they had chariots of iron. So there's the first indication that you've got trouble here. And in chapter 2, verse 3, God tells them again they're going to be snares and thorns to their eyes. These inhabitants that you didn't drive out. They're going to be a problem for you. Now let's go over to chapter 16, famous chapter in the Bible. And it's the story of Samson. And we can't read the whole chapter. We don't have time. But look at the first sentence. Where did Samson go? He went down to Gaza. You see, you read that yesterday on the news and you go, well, there's something new. No, it isn't. That's as old as Samson. And you know the story, what goes down through there about Samson and getting his eyes put out and cutting his hair off. That all happened at Gaza. Right here. Right there. X marks the spot. It's been a thorn in their flesh for years. And Delilah comes in there, and it's controlled by the Philistines, and the Philistines come in, and they get old Samson. And they're still doing it today. Going in, dragging people out of their homes. Thorns in their sides. 1 Samuel chapter 6. So even over in the time of Samuel, this is still going on. 1 Samuel chapter 6, verse 17. And these are the golden emeralds which the Philistines returned the trespass offering unto the Lord. For Ashkelon, and one for Gaza, one for Ashkelon. Well, there you are. Ashkelon. They show up. Now, where's Ashkelon? Well, Ashkelon is by map, it's just outside of Gaza. This thing isn't to scale. But Ashkelon is now under the control of Israel. You look it up on the map, it's Ashkelon, Israel. But at this time, in the time of Samuel, it's one of the 5 kings of the Philistines. Remember they stole the Ark of the Covenant? And they were sending that thing back. And they sent a golden mouse and golden emeralds for each one of the kings. And one of the kings they sent it back for was for that city, which at the time was under the control of the Philistines. But the Lord has given them the opportunity to get it back. Let's flip back to Judges chapter 14. I should have shown you this while we were coming through. But Judges 14. And this is Samson again. 14:19, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he went down to Ashkelon and slew 30 men of them, and took their spoil, and gave change of garments to them, which expounded the riddle. And his anger was kindled, and he went up to his father's house. So Samson gave him that riddle about the lion, and they solved it. And then to solve the bet, he went down to Ashkelon and killed 30 men. So you can see this is all in the area of the Philistines. Let's get 2 Kings. 2 Kings, chapter 18. 2 Kings chapter 18. And this is the time of Hezekiah. So now we're getting late in Israel's history. 18:8. It came to pass in the 4th year of King Hezekiah, which was the 7th year of Hoshea, son of Elah, king of Israel, but Shushammon, king of Assyria, came upon Samaria to besiege it. And at the end thereof they went, and even in the 6th year of Hezekiah, that is the 9th year of Hoshea, king of Israel, Samaria was taken, and the king of Assyria did carry Israel into Assyria, and then in the Hor in the river of Gosen, and the cities of Medes, because they obeyed not the voice of the Lord, but transgressed the covenant, and all of Moses and the servant of the Lord commanded that they would not bear them there. So this is the same area of what goes on, and it's that Hezekiah wins a great victory there in this same area. Gaza isn't mentioned there, but it's the same area geographically. So we look at this, and let's go on over to Amos, and let's see what the future holds and what the Lord's going to do with this place. And I bring this up. Let's go ahead. Let's get Jeremiah too. Jeremiah 25 before we go to Amos, since it's on the way. Jeremiah 25. So we get into some prophecy here of what the Lord's got coming, and maybe we're beginning to see the platform of this come to pass. Jeremiah 25. Let's start in verse 15. For thus saith the Lord God of Israel unto me, take the wine cup of fury at my hand, and cause all the nations to whom I send thee to drink it. And they shall drink and be moved and be mad because of the sword, and I will send them among them. I will send among them. Then took I the cup at the Lord's hand, and made all the nations to drink unto whom the Lord had sent me, to wit Jerusalem and the cities of Judah and the kings thereof and the princes thereof, to make them a desolation and astonishment and hissing and a curse, as it is this day. Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and his servants and his princes and his people, and all the mingled people, and all the kings of the land of Uz, and the kings of the Philistines, and Ashkelon, and Azon, and Ekron, and the remnant of Ashdod, Edom and Moab, and the children of Ammon. And it goes on. So the Lord prophesies here in Jeremiah 25 that this land, including Jerusalem, there's Jerusalem, including Jerusalem, is going to drink of the cup of God's wrath, and he's going to pour it out upon them. Now let's get Amos. Amos chapter 1. Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Micah, Nahum. Amos chapter 1. Verse 6. Thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Gaza, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because they carried away captive the whole captivity, to deliver them up to Edom. But I will send a fire on the wall of Gaza, which shall devour the palaces thereof, and I will cut off the inhabitant of Ashdod, and him that holdeth the scepter from Ashkelon, and I will turn mine hand against Ekron, and the remnant of the Philistines shall perish, saith the Lord. Now that's a prophecy. That's not come to pass yet. and it will happen sometime in the future, that God says, I'm going to judge Gaza. And Gaza's not the only one. I mean, you can go on and read, and even talks about the judgment he's going to bring about Judah. Look at Zephaniah, just a couple of books over. Zephaniah chapter 2. And again, a prophecy for Gaza. That's the one in the news, isn't it? For Gaza shall be forsaken, and Ashkelon, that's in the news. A desolation, they shall drive out Ashdod at the noonday, and Ekron shall be rooted up. Woe to the inhabitants of the sea coast, the nation of the Cherethites. The word of the Lord is against you, O Canaan, the land of the Philistines. I will even destroy thee, that there shall be no inhabitant. And the sea coast shall be a dwellings and cottages for shepherds and folds for flocks. And the coast shall be for the remnant of the house of Judah. They shall feed thereon. And the houses of Ashkelon shall they lie down in the evening. For the Lord their God shall visit them and turn away their captivity. So, that ain't happened yet. That's going to happen in the future. Zechariah chapter 9. All this prophecy. Zechariah chapter 9. Let's start in verse 4. Behold, the Lord will cast her out, and he will smite her power in the sea, and she shall be devoured with fire. Ashkelon shall see it and fear. Gaza also shall see it and be very sorrowful. And Ekron, for her expectation shall be ashamed, and the king shall perish from Gaza. And Ashkelon shall not be inhabited, and a bastard shall dwell in Ashdod, and I will cut off the pride of the Philistines. That's not been fulfilled yet, but it will be. Now, one more thing. Let's turn to Acts chapter 8. Acts 8. And, of course, Philip is one of the 6 deacons, 6 men set aside. He's not called a deacon in Acts 6, but he's also called an evangelist. And in Acts chapter 8, verse 6, or chapter 8, verse 26, and the angel of the Lord spake unto Philip, saying, Arise, and go toward the south unto the way that goeth from Jerusalem unto Gaza, which is desert. Gaza. And he arose and went, and behold, a man of Ethiopia, an eunuch, of a great authority under Candace, queen of the Ethiopians, who had the charge of all her treasure, had come to Jerusalem to worship. Now, you know the rest of the story, don't have to read it. But here, this Ethiopian eunuch is Jerusalem, and he's headed back to Africa. And when he gets to Gaza, Philip intercepts him. And he's in his chariot there, and he's reading Isaiah chapter 53, a copy, by the way. Had to be a copy, wasn't the original. He's reading a copy of Isaiah, and he calls Philip up into his chariot and says, is this guy speaking of himself or somebody else? And he took it and said, where's he reading? But he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him. And by his stripes we were healed, Isaiah 53:4. And he preached to him Jesus Christ. And somewhere there in Gaza, he gets baptized. And then he goes on to Ethiopia on his way, and Philip disappears. But where did that happen? Gaza. Gaza. So when you hear Gaza in the news, based upon all this scripture, you just go, wow, I wonder what's going on. Now, why is this happening? Well, there's maybe 2 or 3 reasons. Now, look, let me say this before I start. I'm not a prognosticator. I'm taping this. So it's going to show up And you might be able to play it in a month or 2 months or 3 months or 2 years or 10 years and go, that guy didn't have any idea what he's talking about. Well, let me tell you right now, I don't know anything what I'm talking about when it comes to the future except what this book reveals. I told you a few weeks ago there's this guy who guessed that the rapture of the church is going to take place 3 weeks ago. And now he looks like, I'm sure he's a great guy, but he looks like a blooming idiot, right? Right? So let me tell you what I don't know. I could preach a whole message. I could teach a whole Sunday school lesson on things I don't know, and you'd be bored to death and never come back. Here's what I don't know. I don't know when the rapture is going to take place. I don't know. Okay? I don't know. I don't know when the second advent is going to take place. I know it will take place, and I know the rapture will take place, but dating it, it's all guesswork. I don't know. I don't know when the man of sin is going to be revealed. I don't know. I know he will be. And I think he's probably already on the earth, but that's guesswork too. That's just trying to put 2 and 2 together. But you may watch this video in 50 years or 100 years and go, that guy really didn't know what he was talking about. He should have kept his mouth shut. And you're probably right. But I figured out 2 or 3 things. And this is from reading. This is just from reading. I read a lot. Number 1, the Temple Mount. This is from this past Monday in the Jerusalem News. Over 1,400 Jewish pilgrims visited the Temple Mount on Monday. This is this past Monday. On Sunday, 857 Jewish pilgrims visited the site. Now, where is this site? Well, it's up here. It's in Jerusalem, the Temple Mount. If you've seen it on the news, it's that golden dome. And by tradition, that's where Abraham offered Isaac. By tradition, whether it's the actual spot, I guess it's guesswork. But it's under the control of the Muslims right now. So the Muslims control it. So the Temple Mount is open to Jewish visitors Sunday to Thursday, 7 to 11:30 and 1:30 to 2:30. It's not open to the Jews on Fridays and Saturdays. Jewish visitors to the Temple Mount are informed upon entry that prayer and religious items such as prayer books, prayer shawls are forbidden in the complex. Although since late 2019, Jewish visitors have been able to pray quietly, including the priestly blessing in parts of the site relatively undisturbed. Since early last year, there have been occasions in which Jewish visitors have succeeded in praying and singing loudly and even managed to raise Israeli flags, although these visitors were subsequently arrested. The Jerusalem Post, which is where this article is from, has been able to confirm that quiet prayer services took place during the visit of the Jews this past Monday. Jewish law prohibits Jews from entering the Temple Mount unless they've immersed in a ritual bath beforehand. It's called a mikveh. Jewish law also prohibits Jewish visitors from entering the site with leather shoes. Now, that's not out of the Bible. That's Jewish Talmud. That's not in the article. That's just me. The increased number of Jewish visitors at the Temple Mount has sparked outrage from Palestinians. Who's the Palestinians? That group that live right there. They also live up here, and up here they're called Hezbollah. The fear right now is that Hezbollah is going to attack Israel from the north, as Gaza attacks from the south. Now, in the 6 Days War, I didn't mention this, but in the 6 Days War, they attacked from here, and 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 it's over in 6 days. You ought to read about the 6 Days War. It's quite something. They wiped out every nation in 6 days, and they all went, okay. So, police detained 3 Arabs that shouted nationalistic slogans at and harassed Jewish visitors who were exiting the Temple Mount. I watched a video about that. They were shouting, Allah Akbar at Jews and clashing with police. And it's been incessant. So Hamas's response to that visitation is this: the Zionist enemy's aggression against the Al-Aqsa Mosque will not pass normally, and Palestinian anger will have its say. The occupation, that's what they call all of this. They call Israel being here an occupation. The occupation is wrong, and it brings aggression against the mosque, and the women will go unpunished. So I won't go on reading that, but that's reason number one. Now this was too planned, it was too coordinated for it just to be the result of what happened on Monday. Because I said thousands and thousands and thousands. One thing you got to keep in mind too, that we don't want to leave out of this, is that Hamas is backed by Persia. Now you don't know them as that, but it's the Persians. That's the biblical name for them. We know them as Iran. And Iran's a thorn in our side, and Iran's a thorn in Israel's side. So Hamas is just a proxy for the Persians, for the Iranians. They're the ones who are supplying all this rocketry to Hamas. And so they said, if you're going into the Temple Mount, we're going to stop you. The second reason, I think, is because of Saudi Arabia. They've got a 38-year-old crown prince. He'll soon be king. But he had an interview with Brett Baer the other day that's quite interesting, lasts about an hour. And you tell him, that guy, he's slick. He's very personable, very dynamic. And he said in that interview that he wants to have peace with Israel. Well, they can't have that. Hamas can't have that. Iran can't have that. Iran hates the Saudi Arabians. They're two different sets of Muslims. The Sunni and the Shiite. You ever heard about them? So Saudi Arabia says, we'll have peace with Israel, and this attack takes place. Now, I think those are probably two secondary reasons. I think the third reason is that this is an end-time platform for everything to take place very quickly. You look across the world, I don't say this to cause any fear or trepidation on your part, but you look around the world and you got Russia and Ukraine, you got China eyeing Taiwan, and they can invade any day. Wouldn't be surprised if it happened this week. Not the same thing it is. I don't know. But if it were to happen, and then you got more trouble in the Middle East that's not even getting any news, and that's one country already is building up arms against another country, and war may take place there. That's in Europe. And then you've got an invasion from the south into our country, which is causing all kinds of chaos and that kind of thing. And you got this whole thing going like this. Now I'm going to stop. I could go on. I might teach a whole lesson on this. But from indicators that I'm reading, and these are economists, this isn't the Bible preference, this isn't the Bible speaking, this is economic data that the economists are saying, that this whole thing could crash in 2024, and we might see something worse than depression. Well, what if that happens? What if your dollar is only worth a penny, and your $100 is worth $1? What are you going to do? Well, the Lord's coming. And sometime, it may not be in our lifetime, it may not be right now, this all may calm down. They may have a peace treaty this afternoon. I look like an utter fool, but I'm telling you, sometime it's going to happen. And the Lord's going to come back. And I pray before they're invading our house and dragging out our kids, that the Lord comes and gets us. Because the Antichrist is coming. And the judgment against Israel is coming. It's got to happen for the Bible to be fulfilled.